one extra mortgage payment once a year. Also, how to ensure that this extra payment goes against the principal amount. When are you talking about investment and making money in the same? What about capital gains tax on sale? We'll come to this last question. So first one, what helps paying additional money every month or one extra mortgage payment once a month, once a year? See, your interest is, when you look at a mortgage, okay, any mortgage, any bank, any lender, interest is calculated on daily reducing balance, which means whatever is your principal of that day is what is the interest of that day. And then they add all these interests, and then your interest is calculated as per number of days. Obviously, most of the time, your monthly principal is the same. But if during the month, your principal has gone down by even $10, the next day's interest will be calculated by $10 less. So if you are doing once a year repayment, then you're missing out on the 364 days. If you're doing regularly, then you are benefiting. That doesn't mean you start doing $5 every day. If you can, why not? You can do that as well. Absolutely no problem doing that as well. It's a bit hard unless you put a recurring deposit or a recurring credit into your home loan. But even if you do monthly, all good. It'll be much better off than doing an annual thing in terms of financial gain, which you'll get. Now, how do you ensure this repayment goes against principal? If it is more than your monthly repayment, it will always go into the principal. It doesn't go towards the next month's interest, which means if your repayment is say $3,000 in this month and you paid $3,500 in this month, that extra $500 actually is gone into reducing your principal, and you don't need to do anything for it. It's the way it works is if you see your home loan statement, okay, in that home loan statement, if you have a principal and interest repayment at the end of the month or somewhere there, you will find an interest debit there. So which means that if your home loan, say, balance was $325,400 before this, and then you have $2,000 as interest coming in, it will, on that day, you will find 3,340, whatever we said, will go up by $2,000. And the next day, if your repayment has gone as 2,500, then it goes down by 2,500. So your $500 principal has gone down in this case, in this whole thing. If you paid 1,000, then $1,000 principal will go down because interest to interest is just cancelled out like that ways. Well, I hope I explained that to you. But all right, capital gains tax. Do you want to talk about something on capital gains tax question?
Yeah. So after the new legislation, current CGT is basically indexed. So previously, when you sell your property after 1 year of the transaction, first 50% of the gain was exempted, and then other 50% were added to your incomes, and then according to that you were taxed. Now it's inflation adjusted. So basically, for first few year, according to the inflation figure, the capital gain tax is higher. That means you have to hold the property for a longer. So we put a calculator on our website. If you can put your number, you can actually calculate how much capital gain tax you will pay tentatively according to the property size. According to our estimation, if you hold the property for 8 to 10 years, then you can still come into that window. That means instead you used to say, so basically the hold period of the property are increased a little bit.
Yeah, correct. Absolutely right. See, the concept which have happened, changes which have happened with respect to capital gains are more prompting people to, in terms of mathematics, more prompting people to have a longer term hold on the property rather than a short term one. So if you're flipping, then you have to have a different strategy. But if you're holding for 8-10 years, you're not going to be dramatically impacted. If you want to understand what are the indexation rates which are going to be, you can always go into the ATO website and find out the study loan indexation rates, and you will find some kind of rates which are there on the ATO website. Those rates are the one which most likely are the ones which are going to come for the mortgage as well. So that will show you an indexation for some month as 3%, some month as 2%, some month as 4% as well. All depends on the inflation. Is it good to make repayments fortnightly or monthly? Fortnightly is always good. So bank systems are pretty simple, that they will divide your monthly repayment to 2 and make it fortnightly. What that does is, suppose you're paying $2,000 a month, they will make it $1,000 per fortnight. But in this case, if you're paying $2,000 a month, then your total annual repayment is $24,000. But when they make it $1,000 into 26, it becomes $26,000. So you pay one month's repayment extra. That's because of the way they calculate, but it's kind of a forced way of saving. Same bit which you were saying about $100. This is your another way of paying more off into the mortgage. Okay. Okay, now this is a specific question. I have 443,000 loan remaining. I have $50 in redraw. I pay fortnightly. What else should I do to reduce the interest or loan? I think 50,000 in redraw. All right, okay. Now that's correct. Now that's good stuff which you've done. I also start paying some extra money towards the loan. That's the right thing. See, the loan was not built in a day. You can't be if you had if anybody had 500,000 or $440,000 and you could knock that off in 1 month, then that's it. You never needed the loan in the first instance. So you're doing the right thing. You're paying extra into the loan. You're paying the principal off faster. That's reducing the interest which you pay off. In the same example which I used a little while ago, if you have $2,000 interest which was credited and you have 2,500 repayment which is going, if your 2,500 repayment remains the same, but your interest goes down to from 2,000 to 1,800, you're paying more and more principal. And that's the beauty of this thing. If you are able to pay extra, you are winning it. If you are able to pay a lump sum, then you're cracking it. All right, that's the difference. But you're doing good. Thank you very much. You're doing very good.
First home buyer getting into the investment, that means are you working towards your investment goals or you're looking for a property for yourself to live? If you're looking
I suppose they would want to talk about this rent vesting.
rent vesting, yeah, then that's a great market to get in. So for that, you need to define the right strategy. So you need to talk to either Parag or Mudita, finance team, to understand how much you can borrow versus what is the realistic approach for your portfolio. Then according to that, we can build the right strategy. Because unless you have a strategy, you will buy a random asset. If you buy a random asset, then probably you can't expand your portfolio. Because when you're doing a rent vesting, and if your strategy is to have around 5 properties or 6 properties worth of $3 million, you need to understand how you can leverage these entire funds and what kind of property will suit your requirement. So you will have a right property to get your good capital growth, and then where you can withdraw that equity and get the next one, versus how you can generate the enough cash flows to sustain that $3 million loan. So that's very important. So right strategy is very important. You can touch base with us, we can sit with you, we can understand your entire requirement, and according to that, we can give you a right strategy.
I'll give you an example. Okay, I'll maybe pitch in here and just maybe two more minutes. And I think we've taken this session quite far, much beyond the time which is there. But I really like your question, so I'll explain to you what I discussed with a client a few days ago, and they are first home buyers, exactly like you. They told me that they've got about, let me just remember correctly, they told me that they've got about $50,000 with them. And they were not sure. They can't buy. They live in Sydney. They can't buy in Sydney for sure. The incomes are great. So income wise, no problem, but they can't buy in Sydney because the money is not enough to do anything. And they don't want to buy an apartment. They want to buy a house in a specific suburb, which is way beyond right now. So they said, okay, but we want to invest in. Is that something which is going to help us? So we made a roadmap, and we're just having a discussion with them. And we spoke about what benefit they can get with an investment. So we turned out to be that, okay, you can buy a little bit more. You can buy a $400,000 property today, which is going to give them a rental yield of about 5.5%. And what that is doing is we are projecting that kind of a property is going to give them a growth of about 150K in the next 2 years. With that 150K, which they said that they will maybe liquidate that property at the end of 2 years or 3 years, and then whatever is payable, or maybe take out equity from there and utilize it to buy another one. Because eventually the kind of property they want to buy, they need about $300,000-$400,000 for savings for there, assuming that property price jumps up a bit. So that buffer has been taken in. And then they said, okay, let me utilize this equity of the first property in the year 1.5 or 2, and then buy another one. So at the end of 4 or 5 years, they want to be ready with $400,000-$500,000, which they can utilize as a deposit for the actual house which they want to buy, because the kids are small. When the kids grow up, and that's when their whole plan comes in about the school zone and the area where they want to go. So that's the way people have made plans, and that's the way you will find a lot of youngsters are making plans about what do they want to do in their future. And if you are in the same boat, that's another way of thinking of it. So it's first home buyer or investment, it's all depending upon where do you want to go, what kind of goals you have, and how do you want to achieve those goals. Good. Is paying extra amount, let's say $100 per month, is the impact same as paying in the offset account, or should be paid straight to the loan account? Now, good. And I prompted somewhere in between to ask this question. And if you ask, no, thank you very much for that. Now, it's a matter of discipline, okay? When you put money into the offset, and we've seen that this is all behavior. I've done that. I'm pretty sure you would have done that as well. Julius has done that for sure. But if you've got money in the offset in your bank account, eventually there is a thing about spending that money. And so we've always find that people's offset accounts go up and down like that. They go up and down because there's money available in your transaction account and you do stuff with it. You live your life and you do stuff which is there. But when the money is put into the redraw account, very rarely do you find people bring that back into their normal bank account to spend on something. Redraw becomes a permanent, unseen, piggy bank account where it's gone away from your eyes. It's put in there. So the discipline of putting $100 into the loan helps you more than the discipline of putting into the offset. Technically, they both are the same. You get the same impact from there. But as a matter of habit, it helps you by paying into the loan more than by paying into the bank account. It's just about habits. It's not about financial differences.